Welcome back to the United Pubcast. The season has finished, but as Erik Ten Hag says, there is one more game to go. And I do want to spend about 10 minutes talking about his speech, because my God, it gave me goosebumps. I didn't see it live. I saw it a few hours after I did wake up after the match. And the proper leadership from Erik Ten Hag I thought was absolutely brilliant. And we'll dissect sort of what that means. Is it just PR, or was there sort of a significant meaning behind it? But Erik Ten Hag has pulled an absolute masterstroke, in my opinion, in the build-up to this FA Cup final. But bit of a quick one today. Larry could potentially be joining us and adding a third wheel to this podcast, which would be a pleasure. But just have a look back at sort of last night in regards to Manchester United, but also the ramifications of sort of what did happen around the league. It was an exciting day in regards to all the goals flying in. Not often you get all the games happening at once, so it's obviously hard to sort of keep track of everything. But all eyes now, George. Obviously, George is joining us back on the podcast. Thank you very much. And all eyes, George, do go towards this FA Cup final in a week's time, or less than a week's time now. It is Monday night here in Sydney. FA Cup final is Saturday night for us. Just how you feel in regards to this, because that has been a sort of good end to the season. Like, there was a bit of a downward sort of slope towards the last sort of four or five games, but then we sort of picked it back up and got the job done and finished with a win against Fulham. But there is no doubt, no matter what form we're in, no matter how confident we could be, going into this FA Cup final, well, we don't like to admit it, but we are happy to, as Man United, or not happy to, but we're mature enough to admit it. Manchester City are the best team in the world. They're the best team in the country, so it's going to be a hard test, no matter how we look at it. Just how are you thinking less than a week out?
It's one of those things that I almost could not give a shit if we lose this game, as long as Inter beat them next week. But one of those finals has to go our way, whether it's my boys in blue or United. Obviously, we prefer. Which one would you prefer? Like, because the Champions League is something we still have over them.
Yeah, look, we can sit here and have this argument that, well, they're going to do the treble eventually in terms of the way they run, the money they spent. They're going to do the treble eventually. Well, that means they're also going to the Champions League eventually. So I've come to terms with them winning the Champions League, and yes, we still have that over them in regards to our total. So I'm not overly concerned. Now, if they weren't in a treble picture or a Premier League picture and they're going to win the Champions League, I'll be absolutely dreading it. But in regards to they have been successful, they're eventually going to do this at some stage. I have no sort of real issue with them winning the Champions League. But obviously we'll have to beat them in the FA Cup. But we do have a few, as you say, boys in blue. We do have a few in blue for Inter Milan, Mkhitaryan, Darmian, and Romelu Lukaku. Wouldn't you love like a Mkhitaryan or a Romelu Lukaku goal? And who knows, Pep Guardiola in a European Champions League final, he could potentially make it complicated for himself. But that is hopefully a moot point and hopefully not something we have to rely on. Hopefully our boys in red can get it done on Saturday in the FA Cup final. But just cast my mind back to last night, 24 hours ago, less than 24 hours ago. Actually, just say some people in the chat, Rob, good to see you. Just enjoyed your show, mate, on It's a Football Thing, discussing I said, what a season it's been, a long season in regards to that Brighton and Brentford defeat at the start of the season a long time ago, and you forget the World Cup final was in there. Only just remembered that. And Justin, good to see you, pumped for the pub this weekend, definitely. If you are in Sydney, George as well, good to see you, mate. If you are in Sydney, Scruffy Murphy's, Saturday night, it will be at capacity. It will be packed. So if you do need a spot to watch the FA Cup final with some Man United fans, that is your place. And last time we were in there against Manchester City, I've never seen the pub like it. It was absolutely amazing. So fingers crossed we can recreate that. But George, cast your mind back to yesterday. Where do you want to start in regards to just as a whole, the Man United game? Any talking points from Man United, or in terms of around the grounds? It was a chaotic day. And I'm just thinking, was it a chaotic day in regards to, was it kind of like a standard Premier League match day in regards to, we always get that, it's just when all the goals go flying in at once, they're all kicking off at the same time. It seemed more chaotic, or was it really like a crazy day regardless of the situation?
Personally, I don't think it's too crazy a day. We wouldn't be having too many talking points if it was in its normal schedule where you've got your game spread out over the weekend. And I'll be completely honest, I didn't watch the United game live. I was watching Everton-Bournemouth the whole time, hoping that Jordan Pickford would be playing at his level in the Championship, and unfortunately Decore had to ruin that for us. We could have signed him, so that never happened, hopefully. But as for United, when I did watch it 2 days, I was actually surprised with how strong Ten Hag went.
Were you surprised, though? Because that was my next point. Like, yes, I was, but also in terms of the evidence we have, he was going full strength. In the days leading up to this game as well, he also alluded, the reporter asked, is there a chance for Zidane, Iqbal or Kobe Manu to play? And he said, no, they haven't earned their spot. So we shouldn't be surprised that he has gone full strength.
I guess I do like that he's basing his selection on merit. But in saying that, if throwing caution to the wind is something that we have to do, especially when you have City coming up, when we had Anthony already getting stretched off against who'd we play, Chelsea. But you're right. On the evidence that we have, the game that I personally went to, the League Cup semi against Nottingham Forest, and we were up 3-0 and nothing.
That was the one.
Apart from Maguire and Lindelof, we had our first team out there.
Mm. Do you think, in terms of a preparation, you look at Pep Guardiola now, Manchester City, they're a different animal to Manchester United, but do you have a preference in regards to, let's say you're a manager, you're in Erik's shoes or Pep Guardiola's shoes? Pep Guardiola has lost the match, but ultimately rested all his big players. Now, obviously, one or two did play, but he rested Kevin De Bruyne, Erling Haaland, sort of thing, those players. Erik ten Hag is going into the FA Cup final off the back of a win, but obviously played all the players. Now, obviously, no injuries, and one or two did get sort of half an hour, 20 minutes rest towards the end of the match. But is there a correct approach for you, in your opinion, in regards to keeping that rhythm, which a lot of managers do talk about, and that winning momentum? Or if you rotate everyone completely and you still lose, well, the players who were on the bench, they weren't involved in the loss, so it doesn't really affect their rhythm. Just, is there a correct approach to you in regards to this type of situation?
I think both managers have gone with the correct approach for this particular scenario. I think if Pep were to go full strength, knowing that he's still got 2 games to play, I think that wouldn't have been the smart thing to do, especially when the league was already wrapped up. And with all due respect to Brentford, it's not like you're playing another Champions League quality opposition, despite their good season and the fact that they did put 4 past us earlier in the season. And as for Ten Hag, I guess his thinking is that, well, if I don't play my first team against Fulham, it means I haven't played 9 days before, and that's enough time to almost be a bit cold if you haven't played in that time. I did expect Rashford to start, considering he didn't start against Chelsea and a few other players. De Gea was the one that I was actually surprised started. I thought, maybe Butland gets a game, maybe Heaton gets a game.
Yeah, well, Ten Hag's ruthless, and that is a very good trait to have. That's something we are going to celebrate, but also we also sort of want to, not that I was sort of clamouring for a Jack Butland debut, but in terms of that is something we do want to see in terms of a young player. But if Erik ten Hag doesn't feel they sort of deserve that opportunity yet or that chance, fair play to him. I think they're the right standards to have. So a little bit of a balancing act in terms of dealing with that as a fan. But interesting. Mike, good to see you, mate, as always. Just this point here, George, from the other George in the chat. Now, we're Manchester United, so it's this global sort of the size of the thing. As I said, what are we going for? £6 billion. Okay, well, we're not short of any cash. Well, it depends how you look at it, but you know what I mean, in terms of this big brand. But George brings up the point here. We gain an extra $5 million for coming third, just in regards to league placings. First gets this amount, second gets this amount, so on and so on. We're not a club like, okay, you could say Luton, who are going to count all their pennies coming into the Premier League. But do you think the club sort of value that? Because you think, okay, $5 million, okay, it's absolutely nothing to a club like Manchester United. But ultimately, do you think the hierarchy do look at that and go, well, okay, that is $5, that pays someone's wages for a year? Do you think they do value that, or they literally don't even look at the prize money for league placings and trophy wins?
Honestly, I think that sort of prize money from placing just goes into the team kitty for your team night out, night away, or team dinner. Honestly, with Premier League clubs like that, that's what I reckon they do with it, with the money that's coming in. And thank you, Rob, on your comment. Thank you very much. Onto the Beach Olympics in Bali and the World Cup next year in Germany. So yeah, thanks for that, Rob.
Yeah, we'll have to get up maybe sort of live stream on the podcast or George's beach handball stuff. So we'll definitely keep that on all our socials when that does come around. But yeah, obviously beach handball. Australian's goalkeeper, who was great watching that a couple of weeks ago in terms of that one. We watched you on the Gold Coast against New Zealand. Big penalty shootout. I need you to talk me through the rules of a penalty shootout. I didn't understand what was happening in regards to one of your goalkeeper's tactics before you came on and saved the day. Actually, off air, I wanted you to talk me through what on earth he was doing. I'm sure there was a valid reason to what he was doing. I didn't understand it. You came on and acted like a goalkeeper and saved the first one. But that is a debate for another day. But SJ, the 7-day break is effectively a rest for our first team. Yeah, look, there's definitely a break between the games, so definitely no issue in regards to it wasn't playing everyone on a Thursday and having them sort of recover for the game on the Sunday. So look, lost no sleep over Erik ten Hag going full strength, but it worked out well. We didn't have any injuries. If we did have an injury, if Casemiro got sent off or he played Varane and Varane did his hamstring, we'll be having a very different discussion. But those are the fine margins we did play with in this game called football. But post-match, George, very standard for any club. I know Manchester United is sort of no different in regards to the last home game. The manager and players will sort of do a lap of honour, or whether you call it lap of honour or a lap of appreciation. I guess that depends on how your team performs throughout the season. But Erik ten Hag and the team do their lap of honour, and Erik ten Hag is very tradition with Manchester United manager, gets on the microphone and addresses the fans, says thanks for support, blah, 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 we go again next year. Very sort of standard and sort of reads off a script. This one did feel, I got goosebumps watching it, just in regards, he did all the thank the staff, thank the players, thank the fans for the incredible support. But then he went a little bit off key and said, okay, this season's not over. We do have one more game to go, and we're going to give bloody everything to win this. And you as fans are going to come down to Wembley and give everything as well. And I remember the goosebumps when Sir Alex Ferguson retired in that speech. Now, a very different context around that speech, but that gave me goosebumps. This one here went with Erik ten Hag, just the tone of his voice and the passion in terms of the way he points his finger. It got me fired up. And I'm just thinking, the way the crowd reacted to his words, the players would have felt that. Now, the players I'm sure they're aware of the situation that the Man United fans face in regards to Manchester City and the treble. But I think the way the crowd reacted to Erik ten Hag's words, I think that was a real eye-opener to the players. And maybe that's me reading too much into it, but I really did get a sense that they go, oh, okay. Okay, just an extra 5%. Now, someone could say that's going to add too much pressure on them. It's probably a bad thing that's happened. I would see it as a positive in regards to them sort of doing that extra 5-10% more for the fans. But just your thoughts on the speech and just the reaction to it.
All you've been saying, everything this year, whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's ugly, like the Ronaldo scenario, it's been different in the way that Ten Hag's dealt with it. And ultimately, it's benefited us as a football club. And the way that he's rallied up the fans, I guess we haven't seen that sort of reaction to Fergie's farewell speech.
Yeah,
that's all I've got to say about that. Really, it's one of, and I was not that you should be listening too much to the football YouTubers, but they're saying, oh, you've got to get on the morning of the FA Cup final, get Fergie and get Keno and get all the treble winners in, just to say our club is built around this legacy. Dude, protect it.
Well, it's hard in regards to that. I think we all want that as fans, but we also have to look at one of the huge criticisms we've had at these players is their inability to deal with pressure. And I'm just thinking, we say, okay, send Roy Keane in there, Paul Scholes, David Beckham to remind them. Maybe that adds to the pressure, so maybe it's something we don't want to do. But look at Erik ten Hag. If he wants to bring anyone, if he wants to bring Sir Alex Ferguson in to sit next to him in the dugout, do that. If he wants Sir Alex Ferguson to stay in Manchester and not be anywhere near Wembley, Erik ten Hag's decision, that's the decision that needs to be made.
Surely Fergie will be there, though.
Oh, yeah, of course. But you know what I mean? Like, in terms of whatever Erik ten Hag thinks is the right thing, I still think it's criminal Erik ten Hag brings the players to Old Trafford about 3 or 4 hours before kickoff. In saying that, you look at our home record, it's obviously working a treat, but I would hate that as a player.
So does that mean we need to turn up to away games about a couple of days earlier?
Yeah, well, I don't know what happened. Yeah, in regards to it's obviously standard in terms of the way they do it at Old Trafford. Now, I'm sure they don't go. I know for a fact they wouldn't go into the change room 3 or 4 hours before. I'm sure they do go into a suite and sort of sit down and have a drinks or have a light sort of meal or whatever. But away from home, they're obviously bound by. Obviously, they're in a hotel, sort of they're going from the hotel to the game, so they wouldn't be getting there the 3 or 4 hours before kickoff. They'd be getting there the sort of hour and a half, hour and 20 minutes before kickoff. They'll get off the bus, get in the change room, and out on the pitch. So maybe that is a bit of a sort of an insight into the difference between the home and the away record.
Yeah, look, unfortunately, as Rob pointed out in the OFG podcast, we didn't beat a single top 10 team away from home all season, and a lot of those were near misses. For example, Tottenham right at the end when we're 2-0 up and they equalised. Chelsea, where we were absolutely robbed a penalty. I mean, not to say that we would have won that game, because I don't think we'd probably go on to score the goal that we scored in that game if we didn't go 1-0 down. And what's the other one that I'm thinking of? Who else did we blow it against? Brighton right at the end. Yeah, go on.
The worst decision for me, and I'm telling you, we're winning a title if this doesn't happen. Scott McTominay was in on goal against Crystal Palace.
That is stonewall.
Forget the penalty. It ruined our season. We're in good form. We're closing in on the top of the table. Scott McTominay goes down. The clearest penalty I've seen this season. It's not given. Unbelievable. But then if that goes 2-0, Casemiro gets taken off and gets rested before the Arsenal match, but it stays 1-0, so Casemiro stays on, gives away a yellow card. We concede off a free kick. He's suspended because we don't have that second goal. So instead of being 2-0, it goes 1-1. We drop points there, and Casemiro is suspended for Arsenal, which we lose. And I just think that it all sort of capitulated after that. And I just think if that penalty is given and we convert that and go 2-0 up against Crystal Palace, look, obviously we're not going to win the league, but it's a different season. Those next 2 or 3 weeks, which our season did sort of go a bit downwards. But look, Manchester City are deserved winners. We deserve to finish third, and that's where we have finished. But Here, just before we do move on, there's sort of one or two more sort of individual players I want to touch on before we sort of have a sort of. We're going to do Larry and I are meeting at the pub tomorrow to do a proper FA Cup final preview from Scruffy Murphy's. So I won't sort of preview the final in great detail now, but we'll obviously touch on a little bit at the end. But Rob here on David De Gea or Roy Keane. Roy Keane's made no secret over the last couple of years his thoughts towards David De Gea. Just off the bat, just look, join the debate in regards to another David De Gea discussion. Of course, we don't want to sort of bore everyone with it. But just the latest in and around David De Gea in regards to he's got the Golden Glove now. Is that an individual award or should the defence be credited with that? It is what it is. Give him credit. If he's not good enough, he's not good enough. He's good enough, he's good enough. That's another debate. But just your current feelings towards the De Gea situation off the back, especially with Roy Keane, sort of not holding any punches post-match.
Credit where it's due. De Gea he's had his moments this season where he's kept us in games, but unfortunately he's had his moments this season where there's been more to be desired. And what I do like about De Gea, though, this season is that while he might not be, let's call it Man United level, where we want to be under Ten Hag in terms of a keeper and his anticipation, his commanding, his ability to command a box, and his ability to play out of the back, he's at least made the effort to improve that this year. And that's been evident in the way that his starting position has gone another 5 or 10 yards out of his box when we've had the ball with a higher line. And I think there's no coincidence that his better performances were when it was Varane Martinez in front of him, and his worst ones when it was our captain in front of him.
Yeah, no, it's something that we always sort of label at other players in terms of this player needs speed around him, or this player needs creativity. Goalkeeper sometimes maybe simply needs better players in front of him. And I think that is the case. But in terms of one of those players, never short of a topic, especially on this podcast, very interesting. Fred obviously I gave him the 3 points in my 3-2-1 yesterday. Whether you want to define that as man of the match, I'm not sure. We put in a good performance, a brilliant pass to Bruno's winner. I don't know the full context behind it. Twitter seems to suggest Margot Silva, the Fulham manager, was on the Fulham bus and sort of ran off it when he saw Fred go into his car, and he sort of intercepted him and had a chat with him in the car park at Old Trafford. Who knows? They might have been talking about Andreas Pereira. They could have been talking about anything. Who knows?
They both speak the same language.
Yeah, you put 2 and 2 together in regards to Fred's contract situation. What Fulham could do with another good midfielder. Okay, very easy story that he was talking. Are you interested in joining Fulham? Samuel Luckhurst has just tweeted out that there is interest from Fulham towards Fred. Just your thoughts in regards to something I wouldn't have given any thought to before I saw this footage of them talking. But now I've seen it. Now that's in my mind. I think, well, hang on. In regards to Manchester United needing to cash in on 1 or 2 players, the individual ambition of 1 or 2 players as well. Fulham's need that. They want to capitalise off a good season. I'm just thinking it wasn't in my mind at all. But now I see nothing but sort of Fred joining Willian and Andreas Pereira at Fulham.
I think because, just clarify for me, is Fred off contract this season, or does he have, or is it where he has, or we have an option as a club to extend his contract for a year? What's the scenario there?
Yeah, I'm not sure what Fred.
I'm not
sure what the situation.
Because I remember Fred being off contract, I thought, after this season. So I'm thinking if he leaves on a free, well, so be it. He's done his best in his time here, and if we are to sell him, he's approaching his mid-30s.
I'm sure there's someone correct me in the comments. Surely the club have an option to extend, because if he was walking away for free in a couple of weeks, we would have heard in regards to concrete talks with other clubs, and I simply haven't had that. So surely he's still.
Well, I think we do that option to extend is in our favour, not his.
And another name here, Al saying trade Freddie McTominay. He's also thrown Donny van der Beek. Now, Donny van der Beek obviously not going to go because of his injury situation. It's simply impossible to sell, and no club's going to take that risk. But that is interesting in regards to Erik Ten Hag's sort of future. What does he see from Donny van der Beek? It wasn't sort of high on his sort of starting list at the start of the season. Unfortunately picked up that injury. But Donny van der Beek is someone we do have to sort of weigh up into this sort of midfield sort of selection in terms of, okay, how many players we're going to let go, how many players we're going to bring in. It will be very interesting. But before we do before we just do move on to the FA Cup final, or not a sort of proper sort of preview, but just sort of 1 or 2 thoughts ahead of it. Get your thoughts in the live chat with this. I'll just bring up a photo here. The new kit has been leaked. And this is an interesting one. I don't mind it, but then the Team Viewer, I just don't know what they have done with Team Viewer, because this season I actually didn't mind it in terms of just it's one line of text, quite small, quite subtle. It is what it is. I think people will complain at any sponsor, but this one they've made it 2 lines for Team Viewer in terms of up and down. And I just think, could they have simply made Team Viewer any bigger? Like, in terms of the huge criticism of the Chevrolet logo was how big it was. And I just think it was big because that's what the shape of the logo was. Team Viewer can be quite a small logo, and they've done their best, my God, to make it bigger than the Chevrolet logo, because that is an advertising board for Team Viewer.
And also, like, no Adidas text under the bottom of the symbol. I think that's a bit different to me as well.
I think one kit this or last season, maybe the blue and yellow kit potentially had that. Or was it in different colour? It was in different colour.
The Adidas was written in a different colour, but it was still the text was there. Like, this is just the 3 lines.
Your thoughts on black lines instead of white on the sleeves?
I like it. We had it, which I believe it was the 18-19 season, and I liked it then. And I like it how it matches the black neck on the collar.
I don't mind the collar. I think the collar. Look, I'm not rushing out to buy this, and I haven't bought a home kit for a while. I'm definitely not rushing out to buy this one. I don't mind the collar. I would have preferred white stripes, but it is what it is, sort of thing. I'm glad that kit you allude to there, George, in regards to the black. The thing I didn't like about that, it had black shorts for the home kit, and I think a huge thing for Manchester United is the white shorts at home. So I can accept the black on the sleeves if the shorts do remain white.
But in Europe, we did wear white shorts with that. In Europe, we did.
Occasionally, depend on what team you are wearing in terms of the rules they have in regards to kit clashes. Obviously, sometimes we did go back to white shirts, but Rob, this season is better. I would lean towards this season in regards to the collar and maybe a little bit more white in there, and just the team view. I just look, and we'll forget about this in a couple of weeks' time after they start playing preseason matches in it. But I just don't know why they have done. Especially with the team viewers potentially being sort of not out of contract, but sort of having that contract dispute and looking to leave their current agreement with Man United. In terms of, look, I understand they want their name out there, but I would have kept it at 1 line. I thought this season was quite nice, but here, don't buy jerseys until the Glazers leave. Don't give them money. Well, we've been having that debate for 15, 18 years. It is what it is. Okay, we're giving money to. Obviously, I'm not buying the shirts, but in regards to we're buying Sky Sports subscription, or we're tweeting about them, or we're talking about them on YouTube, or we're going to games to 76,000 people every week. We all fund the Glazers, unfortunately. That is the nature of the beast. So, look, I won't be buying a shirt. Probably not so much this year because of the Glazer situation. Probably just because I'm not a huge fan of it. But maybe I'm just old and grumpy about that. But George, FA Cup final. Obviously, as I said, Larry and I will be at the pub tomorrow discussing that in sort of great detail in terms of the preview and team selections and looking at Manchester City as well. Just your thoughts in regards to, we discussed at the start, but your confidence levels in regards to if Manchester City play well and we play well, Manchester City are going to win. We fully accept that. But your confidence in this group of players in terms of turning up on the big occasion, result aside, we have no control over what Manchester City are going to do. But in terms of our players performing at Wembley, do you have faith in them?
I'll be a deluded United fan and say yes. If our best 11 is out there and the 11 that Ten Hag thinks is right to get the job done, I'm going to be deluded that night at Scruffy's and say, yeah.
I don't think it's deluded with the likes of, and people don't like this at the moment, he's not on everyone's cup of tea list, but David De Gea is a big personality. He's been there, he's done it. I like him at the back there. But then obviously you do have to look at the names in regards to Rafael Varane and Casemiro in terms of they've been there and done it on the big occasion. And I think their leadership and their sort of experience in these situations. Now, Manchester City have those names as well, of course. But in terms of two of the biggest names to do that at the world stage is Varane and Casemiro. So I do, and that's just because they're experienced and they've done it before. Doesn't mean we're going to win the match, or doesn't mean we're favourites. Far from it. But in terms of it will help compared to have sort of someone who hasn't been there and done it. So and I think that does sort of fill a team with confidence. Let's say it's Fred in there. If Fred was lining up next to Scott McTominay and Harry Maguire behind him, you think, oh God, okay, it's one of these games against Manchester City. Suddenly he's lining up next to Casemiro and Rafael Varane. Fred suddenly feels like Pele. And I'm just thinking that those little things can sort of really help a player, especially mentally.
That's 100% true. And I know you and Larry will probably touch on this tomorrow, but how do you think that last matchup where we beat them plays in Ten Hag's mind? And what I mean by that is, do you think we see Luke Shaw play as a left-sided centre-back because
6 weeks ago when Martinez went down? Yes. I didn't expect this form from Victor Lindelof, and I think it would be I think it would be wrong to, and not so much to drop Lindelof to put Luke Shaw in. I think I wouldn't be playing Tyrell Malacia at left back. I think that's where my issue is. So I think playing Malacia at left back would be too big of a risk. So I think you've got to play Luke Shaw there, and that obviously means Victor Lindelof in the middle. But could you see a situation where he does throw a curveball and plays Luke Shaw, and then obviously has to change things, whether that be Malacia or Delo at left back?
I do think so. Well, at least that it's a possibility, because let's say things aren't going right and we need to go to a back three for whatever reason. That gives you that flexibility where you can just shift out Shaw even further, and he can play that left-sided centre back or a left wing back role. And Bruno on the right, I think, happens for me. I know.
That was my next question to you.
I can't remember who was that said it. I think it was I think George might have said about Anthony being available. I think even if he was available, I think it's Bruno on the right that starts.
Well, that goes back to the previous match at Old Trafford. Bruno and Anthony was the substitute who came on, moved Bruno into the middle. Anthony came on the right and somewhat changed the game. So going back to your question to me, I'll throw it back to you. Erik ten Hag and that victory at Old Trafford against Manchester City, what sort of input do you think that has on the match in regards to his thinking?
Well, in games like this, you're always going for a tried and tested formula, and that is what we know our tried and tested formula to beat City at full strength is, because that City team that we beat was at full strength. Did they play to their peak? Probably not. But that's also our own doing. We did well to contain Haaland.
Who was up front for us? Did Weghorst start that match? When was that?
No, it wasn't Weghorst. It was Martial started that match, and then Anthony came on for him.
Okay. Yeah. What month was that? Was Weghorst a Man United player?
Not yet. It was January.
Oh, so it was before Weghorst came in?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because I was wondering, because Weghorst started like 18 games in a row or something. So I think surely he played, but if it was before he came in, that's interesting, because that front three then, obviously, let's say you were throwing Bruno Fernandes on the right, it picks itself, Martial and Rashford, or do you think there is a situation where you could maybe drop Anthony Martial, play Marcus Rashford through the middle and Jadon Sancho on the left sort of thing?
I think Sancho's form warrants that. It's hard because I think there's a... Could we see Sancho in the 10 for this game?
The only way that happens is Bruno and Sancho. And when Bruno goes wide, Sancho comes in. When Sancho goes wide, Bruno comes in. I think that's
so
the only way.
I could say both of them, because I think Bruno will start on the right. Do you see a scenario where Sancho starts in the middle? Then that way there's flexibility there.
Find out tomorrow. I have no idea. My opinion will change 10 times.
I just think Sancho's been too good at the moment, where you've got to play him because he's in form.
Yeah. That's almost my thing with Victor Lindelof in regards to, I like the idea of Luke Shaw, but I think Victor Lindelof does deserve to start and look. You don't it's not about deserving. It's about sort of what's best for the team. But there is a part. I think Victor Lindelof sort of does make us a more balanced team with Luke Shaw at left back. But Jadon Sancho, in regards to the recent weeks and off the back of Anthony's injury on that right hand side, I think he does deserve it. Now, does that mean he should be playing in terms of giving us our best chance to win the match? That's up for Erik ten Hag to decide. But I think Jadon Sancho has done enough now. He's been off so much criticism, and rightly so, this season. But I wouldn't say hitting sort of great form, but he's on the right path. And as I said, he's a former Manchester City player, and I always look to these games in regards to a few stories and sort of one or two things sort of happening outside the box. And off the back of Jadon Sancho's, let's say, horror season, I have seen he scored more goals than Jack Grealish in less games, though, this season, which is crazy. Or potentially one less. It's very, very close.
One less,
but he played like a lot less games or something. And,
Yeah.
And Jack Grealish, I'm a big fan of Jack Grealish, and I think he's been brilliant for Manchester City this season. But it just goes to show Jadon Sancho, yes, did have a dip in regards to his off-field issues and hasn't performed sort of did when he came back, but at the start of the season very well. Huge goal. If that goal doesn't go in against Liverpool, how does our season turn out if we lose our first 3 games of the season? That moment was almost, okay, the Carabao Cup final, huge. FA Cup final could be massive. That victory against Liverpool at the start of the season, my God, that is the big moment of the season for me.
It's not even just that game. I think let's look at. I think it was the game afterwards against Leicester. It was his goal that broke it open when we were on the back foot, and a big part of that match against Leicester. Even the next week against Southampton, he's the guy that puts the cross in from Bruno to score his volley. And these are one goal wins for us, in which Sancho had a large hand, and unfortunately had to go through his personal issues. With Sancho, we know the talent is there. It's just, can he mentally cope with the pressure at Old Trafford? And that's the tough part for him.
Well, this game's at Wembley. It's not at Old Trafford. I fully understand what you mean, but hopefully he doesn't have to deal with the Old Trafford crowd. This one he has to deal with Wembley, and think he's from London. I think Jadon Sancho. I'm not sure. So
Yeah,
a
he's
bit
a
closer
London
to
boy, I
home.
think. Yeah, he's a
So a
London
bit
boy.
closer to home. So hopefully hits the ground running and gets the job done for Man United. But as I said, Larry and I will be at the pub tomorrow. We'll probably come out Wednesday, the preview, a little bit closer to the game, but we should record that tomorrow. And over a beer, and I'm sure everything I've said now, I'll have this player on the bench, that player on the bench, and it'll be a completely different 11. So do stay tuned for that. But George, any other talking points in and around, whether it be this season or other teams, in terms of that final day? Just any other talking points before we do wrap up?
I'm going to answer, or I'll get you to answer as well. But George's question: is Sabitz's Man United career over?
Oh, yeah, I was going to bring that up. You go first. Yeah, it's a tight one.
I'm going to say yes, but not because it's his fault. I think the price tag that Bayern would want is something we're not willing to meet, and I don't see.
You and me agree on that. You and me agree that he's going to be a lot more expensive than what people think.
Yeah, I think he's not going. Bayern Munich did not let him go for anything less than 45 million.
Yeah, I think around 50, which I understand. Everyone's got no chance, but yeah, I do think in my mind he's a 20, 30 million pound player. But my God, like that's going to buy you a 17-year-old backup right back these days. Like it's crazy money. Rob just putting in here, Poch official. I haven't seen this, but if he has been, just your thoughts on. Obviously, we do know that's definitely going to happen, but I'm sure Chelsea have now done the official announcement. Your immediate thoughts to Pochettino taking over that Chelsea circus?
If you take the Chelsea culture out of it, it's the right appointment because Poch is taking a team where, let's face it, Chelsea. Are you expecting to win anything next season? No, you're not. He's the guy that can build on and establish someone as a solid top four opposition, might have a decent run in a cup here or there, but that's not what Chelsea expect with their culture. They are ruthless with. They're not a project club. We saw that with Potter.
I can see his sack in 18 months' time. I've seen it.
Less, 8 months' time.
Yeah. To be fair, you're probably not wrong there, but you know what I mean. Like in terms of no matter what he does, he's going to get the sack. Now he could do very well for Chelsea. He could win a cup. He could get them back in the Champions League. He could do very well. He'll get sacked. And I'm just thinking, as a manager, I think the huge one now in terms of our sort of bit of a vested interest in now is Tottenham. I follow I spend far too much time sort of following Tottenham fans on Twitter, and they are hell bent against Ange Postecoglou. Now, I'm not saying if Ange Postecoglou should be taking the job or not for his career in regards to what happens, but they're unaware of what Ange Postecoglou can bring to a club in terms of his suitability. I'll get your thoughts on that, but I think from Ange Postecoglou's point of view, yes, how can you turn down the money Tottenham would be offering a chance to manage a big club in the Premier League? But if he does go to Tottenham, no matter how good I rate Ange Postecoglou, he'll fail at Tottenham just because they're Tottenham. Jose Mourinho, Antonio Conte, the greatest managers in the world, will fail at a club like Tottenham. So Ange Postecoglou, I think, will take the job. I think he will be the new Tottenham manager. So I can't begrudge him for taking that. What an opportunity, what a pay packet he will get. He will fail.
I agree. Any Tottenham manager will fail, but I don't agree it'll be Postecoglou that's the manager, though. I think Tottenham see themselves, rightly or wrongly, as a club that can attract higher caliber than that. Not to say that
every manager's rejecting them. Like they're simply like publicly rejecting. No, I don't want to manage Tottenham, and I just think they will sort of stumble and fall upon Postecoglou.
Not to say that Postecoglou couldn't and shouldn't do a job there, but I'd hate it because I'd actually half want them to do okay then.
Yeah, no, there is part of that. Which, I sometimes a few mates of mine who sort of had careers in the game. They go over to England, and you want them to do well, but then you see, well, hang on, they're going to play against Man United in a couple of weeks' time, and you want them to do well. You're sort of happy for them. But you think I better not play well because I care more about Man United than I do you. And I think it was a couple of years ago, Aaron Moy scored against Manchester United, and so that was mixed emotions sort of thing. So there is one of those with Postecoglou. You do want him to do well, but if he comes in and is a rival to Manchester United, I need him to fail spectacularly. And I'm just thinking you don't want to have that feeling towards that manager. But that is a debate for another day. I think he's going to take the Tottenham job. You don't think he will? But very interesting.
But I do think Postecoglou inevitably ends up in the Premier League. My guess is that Roy Hodgson realistically isn't going to last at Palace for that much longer. I think he takes the Palace job.
Interesting. I would have said Leicester. Obviously, Leicester got relegated, didn't they?
Actually, you know what? You know what's a shit? I reckon. Let's say hypothetically, West Ham. I think win or lose that Conference League final.
I think West Ham's a good job. That's a very good job.
He's going to West Ham. I reckon.
London, big stadium. Big stadium. You know what I mean by big stadium.
I think West Ham is a good job. 60,000 seats. It's just shit for football, mate. It'd be perfect for a cricket game. There's never any cricket there.
And I think brilliant for a new manager in regard. Obviously, a new manager would want to keep Declan Rice in that situation. But if you're going to get 100 million in your transfer kitty, I think it's appealing for a new manager to come in and stamp his own authority. He'll get a lot of players. He'll bring in a few Japanese players through his time in Japan, which he'll be able to get for very cheap. So I think having 100 million in your back pocket, starting a new job in the Premier League, I think very appealing. So that's a very good shout. In regards to West Ham, just the last point before we do move on, George, I'm sure you've seen it. This is beautiful. I don't have it up there to bring the photos. The thoughts on Luton's ground, will they relocate or stay where they are? It will be difficult to get 10,000 tickets. Well, Bournemouth have a very small stadium, so Luton will play their games there. The issue is the away stand. Well, not issue, but the issue is the away stand. I think it only holds for 586 tickets or something for the away stand. So Manchester United fans are going to be fighting like hell to get a hand on one of those tickets. But I'm sure everyone has seen the images of you literally have to walk through someone's backyard and you see this little old lady hanging out her washing in this backyard. And I'm just thinking,
imagine the value of that property now, though.
Oh, could you imagine they're like Luton got a game on a Wednesday night, 8 o'clock on a Wednesday night, Manchester United rock into town, you're trying to get to bed or make some dinner like sort of 8:30 at night, and there's absolute chaos like 3 meters from your back window. And I'm just thinking, it's just football at its purest in regards to, okay, it's the English Premier League, all this sort of glitz and glamour and sort of the sort of grand nature of everything in the English Premier League. But at the end of the day, it's all scaled all the way back down to the grassroots and sort of football at its core. I'm just thinking it's beautiful.
You love these stories, though. It's like here at the A-League, our most iconic stadium is Masterfood Stadium. And for those of you internationally that don't know what Masterfood Stadium is, it's in the Central Coast, which is about 80-minute drive from Sydney, and behind the goal are palm trees and sauce bottles in front of a giant roundabout. Fantastic stadium.
And for anyone who sort of didn't understand what George means, that literally blow-up sauce bottles are behind the goal. That no grandstand. You got big blow-up sauce bottles, 20-foot sauce bottles, and a few palm trees. And as I say, that's the iconic stadium in Australian sport, or especially Australian football. And it is good. Like it sounds, and it is stupid, and it sounds stupid. I understand that, but that's what sport and football is about. But Manchester United will only have to play. Actually, did we play Luton a couple of years ago in COVID in the League Cup? I have a feeling we did.
Yeah, we did actually. The League Cup.
I have a feeling Mason Greenwood. I don't want to bring his name up, but I have a feeling Mason Greenwood's good. Dean Henderson played. Yes, I'm just thinking that the fans weren't there because it was behind closed doors, I believe. And
yeah, we did.
So we have played Luton recently.
Yep, Greenwood scored. Henderson did play that match, in fact, and our other goal scorer that day, I believe, was Martial. Martial and Rashford came off the bench. It was 3-0 win.
Look, so in recent times, a good record against Luton. Fingers crossed we can continue. I can see Luton first day. They say Sky Sports will put them on first day. I think the first game of the season will be at home. Luton at home to Chelsea. I think they'll set Chelsea up.
I reckon that's Arsenal that normally get their setups.
Yeah, but Arsenal broke that curse this season. I think they had Palace. First game. Potentially this season.
Arsenal need to play that first newly promoted team and not win that one. That's what they need. That's what they need to do.
But I think Chelsea is that team this year. I just think in regards to the mess they find themselves in, I think that could be Chelsea. But
George, you're right. It was Matter. It was Matter, not Martial. Yeah.
How could I have forgotten that? I'll have to go back and YouTube that one. A 3-0 win. I do remember the Rashford goal in regards to Greenwood, a little bit of an assist. But God, Mason Greenwood, not another. Actually, Borche here, Liverpool. I could see that. Maybe Luton against Liverpool. That's a real throwback. That's at 1980s football in England. I'd love to see that. And look, Liverpool need a big winner. They're going to have to improve. Did you see their goals? Some of the goals in that game, both for and against.
Oh, the 4-all. Oh my God.
Don't know if they were great goals or worse.
You can see why Southampton finished last, please.
Oh, that goal. And look, it's one mistake, but this is a Southampton kid everyone's after. The mistake where he just laid it on a plate for Diogo Jota. I'm just thinking, look, if his price tag was 60 million, now it's 20 million. Igalo was our striker.
Igalo was our striker. Yeah, he was actually that game. On Southampton, James Ward-Prowse, what's his stance on him?
No. Good, very good player. I think Manchester United taking that next step. No.
Yeah, I agree.
Sub him on for free kicks, and that's not that. But he's a very good player. No.
I agree with you on that point, but if you're looking at it this way, if we can't get our number one targets and you still need to upgrade on Freddie McTominay, I do think he's better than both of those.
Oh, look, we don't sign a midfielder deadline day. We're in desperate need, and James Ward-Prowse is available for 10 million. Sign him up. I go bring him to Old Trafford myself. in terms of our ambition and our aggressiveness in the transfer market, we shouldn't be in a position where we're sort of pinning our hopes on James Ward-Prowse. I think, and I don't think we will.
With you. That's where I agree with you.
But there are a lot of people, I'm sure we'll have many discussions in a couple of weeks in regards to Leicester City and also the James Maddison shout in regards to Mason Mount, James Maddison. Obviously, both players that definitely look like they're going to leave. Who's more suitable? What's the price range in regards to both? Definitely. Last question, George, because I do want to get to bed. Weghorst. Maybe we could answer this after the FA Cup final after he bundles it home in the 88th minute to win it. But as things stand now, Weghorst, was it a failure? For me, no. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Weghorst.
For me, yes.
It's such a hard thing because you compare it to the Ronaldo situation. Would have been better with Ronaldo on the pitch or worse with him off the pitch. It's very interesting in regards to that. What Weghorst has done in regards to the tools he has at his disposal, I think he's done all we can ask from him. He's not good enough.
Has he though? Yes, we know he's not good, but he did show, whether it was with the net, from what I saw him at the Netherlands, that he could turn up in big moments. He did have finishing ability. Unfortunately, they just couldn't translate to the Premier League.
I look at big moments. Yeah, you're right. But I look at big moments as well. And's got a key assist for Marcus Rashford in a cup final. That's a big moment for me. Okay, he didn't get the goal and sort of thing, but I think that's a big moment for me. Now, that's only one moment, but my God, in the cup final, it's a big enough moment for me. And in terms of a loan, was it deadline day? Was it close to? Well, I don't know. It was deadline day.
2 days before. It was 2 days before.
It was very, very late in the window. Okay, we can't go buy a striker in emergency situation. For what it was, I think he's done okay. Definitely get rid of him now. He needs to move. Manchester United need to move forward. So it's a tough one. I think we might rate that at the end of the season. In regards to maybe more than a failure, pass or fail, I think it's more of you have to give it maybe a rating out of 10.
I give him a 4.5 out of 10.
I don't like Weghorst, but I'll be a bit more generous. I'll go a 6 out of. Oh yeah, it's okay.
And I like Weghorst. I wanted him in. I was ready to, since George was days. I wanted him.
George was the one person a year ago. I was saying Weghorst to Manchester United. It's on before anyone was mentioning him. And I'm telling you, it must be, besides Weghorst's family, the only person in the world calling for Weghorst to arrive at Old Trafford. But he did call it before. Yeah, but even before Ralph Rangnick arrived.
Maybe he loses that extra 1.5 marks just because I wanted him to do so well and didn't. So maybe that's why I give him 4.5 and not 6.
No, definitely. But definitely. But as said, we do appreciate everyone joining us in the chat. Thank you for George for filling in for Larry off the bench. Larry and I will be at the pub tomorrow recording Manchester Derby FA Cup final. Obviously, the first ever Manchester Derby in the FA Cup final last time against City at Wembley. This maybe gives me a little bit of confidence in regards to it wasn't the 6-1 which was the turning point for City's dominance. A lot of people look at that. The turning point for Manchester City's dominance was the semi-final. And I'm just thinking in regards to we won the league that season, but Manchester City won the FA Cup final. They beat us in the semi-final. So I do look at potentially that in regards to City winning the league and to us spoiling the party if we could do them at Wembley, because I think that's where the sort of tide turned. All those years ago. I think if the tide needs to turn back in our favour, maybe it's our turn to do them at Wembley in the FA Cup final this time round.
Good omen is that our last match at Wembley against them, we won. It was that 2012 Community Shield where Nani come from behind 2-0. Nani ran through the team to win 3-2.
What a substitution that was. We're 2-0 down at halftime, and Sir Alex Ferguson brings on Phil Jones and Tom Cleverley, and I think it might forget the other one.
Anderson,
Phil Jones, Tom Cleverley, and potentially Anderson or Nani.
Forget
who it was.
Imagine that. Because I remember Nani starting the match.
Yeah, but imagine that you're 2-0 down, and imagine these days you're 2-0 down, and you bring on who are the equivalents?
McTominay, Fred, and Maguire.
Yeah, you're bringing those three on to change the game against Manchester City, and it happens. Absolutely brilliant by Sir Alex Ferguson, but it was David De Gea's debut all those years ago. So maybe there are some moments in coming into this game. But as said, please do leave a like on your way up. Be very much appreciated. If you are new,
did De Gea play that match, or was it Lindegaard? Why do I remember Lindegaard playing that match?
No, that was De Gea. That was De Gea's first game.
It was De Gea's debut. Okay, it was.
A horror mistake for Edin Dzeko, scored a long-range goal. Well, not a horror. It's just should have done better. But his career turned out okay at Manchester United. But plenty of De Gea discussions in the near future. But as said, Larry and I will be back with a chat from the pub in the next couple of days with a proper insight and look ahead to the FA Cup final. And it'll be at the pub where all Manchester United fans in Sydney will be gathering on Saturday night at Scruffy Murphy's. So do stay tuned to all our social medias. And if you're in Sydney, get down there for a couple of beers or a couple of dozen if you do need a little bit of help throughout the night. But George, pleasure as always, mate.
Thank you very much. And for those coming along with Scruffy Murphys, just in case things turn sour, please feel free to bring along Inter jerseys for the week after, where we can all meet up again and support our favourite team in Serie A.
I don't know what to think. No.
I'll genuinely buy that Inter jersey of the guy that scores the winner in the final against them.
Darmian or Lukaku in your back. Imagine that.
Oh, beautiful. I'll buy it in a heartbeat, even for double the price.
Definitely. But again, thank you, George. Thank you, everyone, tuning in, and chat to you soon. Until then, have a good one. Cheers.